And scattered showers through the day today, but as you already know, the scattered showers are popping up and they'll continue to pop up on and off through the afternoon. There's a lot of patchy cloud, but it will thin and break, so there will be some sunshine. Top temperature, well, it's not wonderful, but you could still get to 20 Celsius.
Have lunch with Allan Beswick. BBC Radio Manchester.
Do you know, really gets on my chest hairs, does that? No, it does. Lost his battle against cancer. He died. That's it. What battle? You stand there with a sword in. Come on, cancer, I've got you. Come on guard. No, you don't. You just... You live. You die. That's it. What's all this battle rubbish? You don't lose your battle. You don't fight cancer. You get it, you're ill. It's like saying, I'm fighting the flu, me. Yeah. I am. I'm fighting the flu. Oh, I'm fighting the flu. Flu's winning in a minute. What? It's rubbish. It's utter rubbish. You don't fight cancer. You get it, and it either kills you, or you get nearly better from it. Same with an heart attack. Can you imagine? I'm having an heart attack, so over you go, bump. There's people jumping all over your chest and blowing in your mouth. And you say, I'm fighting an heart attack. I'm fighting an heart... No, I'm not. I'm having one. That's it. We use language badly sometimes. I'm not having a go at my mate there, Steve. He's just doing what everyone else does. He's just using the story the way it is. But we pollute our language. We also, I think, offend those who, frankly, decide that, well, I'm probably ready for dying. Don't we? We say, well, have you no fight in you? Of course I've got fight in me. Try and take me wallet. You'll find some fight. If it's fight you want, put your hand on me wallet. You'll be in hospital for 2 years. Exactly. That's a fight. You can't fight an illness. You don't fight it. You deal with it the best way you can. I find the whole thing patronising pap. Anyway, good morning. Yeah, I am in a good mood. Yeah, you're right. Oh, my day's getting lifted as I speak. 0161 228 2255 if you've something to say. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And, of course, you're more than welcome, if you're that way inclined, to text on 07786 206 951. Jimmy in Bolton. Hiya, Jimmy.
Hiya, Alan.
What can we do for you?
I've known you for many years, right from egg and bacon. Your two cats.
Go on.
Okay, listen, can I just say something before my point of view? When Francis Chichester, who was told he had 6 months to live, he bought a 75-foot boat, and he said, I'm going to sail around the world. And he said, how long will it take? He said, it'll take about 18 months. And he said, well, how will you manage coming around Cape Horn after a year? You know, you'll be very... Oh, he said, I won't have time to be ill.
That's right, yeah.
I'll have to look after Gypsy Mop the Fifth.
Yeah.
and that little girl from Leeds, she was given 6 months to live, and she rode a bike from Rome to Leeds, and then she rode right across America, and all right, she only live about a year longer. But at least
the thing.
Something to do, though, doesn't it?
It's the idea of fighting. I can't be doing.
Well, my brother's given 6 months to live, and he just sits in the corner. He's just waiting for the end now.
Well, yeah, but good luck to him. Good luck to him. Anyway, that's not what you come on for. No.
I come on here, the probationary service. I think you know a little bit about this. I'm blind. I know you don't like people saying things like that. Anyway, I'm a pensioner, I'm blind, and my back gardens get out, so I live on my own. And I thought, you know, all these people who are given these community service things, the naughty boys. Yeah. So I phoned the probationary service people, and I said, is there any possibility of anyone helping with back garden, you see? And they said, oh, it's nothing to do with us. So I said, what would you get? They said it was social services for the blind. So I got in touch with the social services of the blind, and they said, oh, no, you have to get in touch with the... Anyway, they passed from pillar to post, and nobody knows at all, Alan, how I get two naughty boys with a probation officer to come and tidy my back. Because that's all you hear on the news is that Naomi Campbell, that was of course, she had a yard brush in New York, brushing the streets in an evening gown, you know, because that's good for the press. It makes news. But how do you get people who are given 200 hours community punishment to help pensioners?
Yeah.
How do you get them to help pensioners?
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer to it. I think that they tend these days to have them doing, rather than that kind of work for specific individuals, they do work like removing graffiti and chewing gum and all that sort of thing. So they do more work that's for the whole community rather than for one specific individual within it. Having said that, of course, if you help one individual, you help us all, don't you? But someone will know. How do you get that? Do they still do it? Does anybody know? Oh, Jimmy wants to know in Bolton. He wants someone to come and do his garden, basically, because he can't do it himself for the reasons previously referred to. But he wants someone to come and do his garden. He thinks the bad lads scheme at the probation service is the way forward, but they say no. They put him onto social services. Social services sent him back. So if nothing else, they've managed to fill his day for him while he rings one to the other. All right, Jimmy, if anyone knows, I'm sure they'll tell us.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, matey, have a good day. 0161 228 2255. How do we help Jimmy? Lily in Bolton, hiya. Hello,
Hi.
Lily. What can we do for you, Lily?
It's just the discussion you started beforehand about the people who are fighting the cancer.
Oh, yeah.
When we say fighting a cancer, obviously, we're not fighting with sword and knife or whatever. The fight is when they go through chemo, when they lose their nails, their hair, everything they've got. This is what they say fight.
Well, they're not fighting, are they? They're not fighting.
Well, what do you think?
Listen, let's diminish it. Let's diminish.
You're fighting for your life.
If I get an headache, yeah, I know the two don't compare, but if I get an headache and I go along and I take an aspirin, am I fighting my headache?
Well, you are, because you are taking something. Well, yeah,
I'm not fighting. I'm treating a condition.
Yeah, but that's fine. But when you are, but you're not dying from your headache.
Well,
we are talking about something.
Lily, I'm not talking about disease. I'm talking about language.
I know.
I don't know that we. Go on.
We use that sort of thing all the time.
Well, that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong.
I thought that was the principle. Lily, I thought the whole purpose of communication was to try and explain the difference between right and wrong. Not to say right and wrong doesn't matter. Saying that you are fighting cancer actually patronises many, many people who, if you like to use that god-awful expression, die of it. They lose the fight as if they're some kind of failure.
Well, I hope you never have to do what.
Well, I hope. I
said when you are using any language that's going to express what they go through, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what it is. It's just explaining and trying to show the actual disaster of the whole thing.
Well, I know. Look, Lily, you don't have to convince me that cancer is a nice thing. You don't have to try and convince me that it's horrible. I know it's horrible, but it's just an illness. It's not something magical. It's not something special. It sure as hell isn't a being with sentience. It's just an illness. And if a person dies from cancer, they haven't lost a fight. They're not failures. They're not weaklings. They're not tragic. They're just dead. They've died of an illness. They've not lost a fight. When Murray went out yesterday to play tennis, he lost the game. He wasn't as good as the man that beat him. When England weren't in the Euro thingamajig that's just ended, it's because they were beaten by other teams. They were not good enough to beat the other team. So when a person dies of cancer, not only have they had a horrible death, but you and me are supposed to say they failed. They didn't fight hard enough. They're just weaklings. They've had all this pain going on, and all we can do is say, come on, fight harder or you'll fail.
Well, I suppose some people make the choice of not going through the...
No, you're not listening, Lily. You're not listening. There are people now traipsing their way up to Christie's and other hospitals to get treatment. It's horrible, the treatment. The side effects of the treatment often are horrible as well. And sometimes they die. But they've not failed. They're not people who have insufficient fight in them. They're just ill people who we ought to support and not criticise for failing.
Yeah, but sometimes the people don't even have chemo, and they've got so much positiveness in them, so they fight it in their own mind.
No, they don't fight it. They don't fight it. It isn't a fight. They are ill. They have symptoms. They wake up, they feel crap. They get up and they do what they can. They're not fighting, because if you say they fight, when eventually they die of their disease, all you've got to offer their relatives is, well, they should have fought a bit harder, and then they wouldn't be dead, would they?
Maybe that's the way you've got the perception of it, but...
You mean there's another way?
Yeah. There's always so many different meanings in what we say.
OK, so Lily, tell me this. When we reported that man had died from cancer and we said he'd lost his fight...
Yeah.
Are we really there to say he's a loser?
No.
He's not a loser.
Not at all.
He's not a loser.
Not at all.
You're sure of that? He's not a loser?
No, he's not a loser because...
Well, how come the language says that he lost? Because losers lose.
Yeah, well, there's so
Murray
many...
yesterday, there were two people playing tennis yesterday, a bloke called Garrad or something like that, and a bloke called Murray. One was the winner. What was the other one, Lily? One was the winner. What was the other one?
I don't know.
Do you think he was the loser? Because one was the winner, the other was the loser.
Yeah.
So when that man died...
But they didn't fight
He's
him.
a loser. The man is a loser. Why? Because he lost. He's a loser. That lost. The one who loses is called a loser.
Yeah, but they didn't fight, did they? They just played.
Doesn't matter. The language is still the same. If you say... I'm asking... Lily, tell me this. Lily, I say to you, person A has lost his fight against cancer.
That's right.
Well, how does that therefore mean... I'll ask you the question anyway. Does that therefore mean that the one who loses his fight against cancer, does that mean he's a loser?
Well, yes.
OK, as long as we agree. So he's a loser. So the guy that's dead...
He lost his life.
Yeah, and he lost his life. He did.
He lost his life.
But he lost his life, yeah. He's a loser.
That's what it
The
means.
language is an
Life.
abomination. It's a foul use of language, and it's patronising to the ill.
I wouldn't take it that far.
OK, well, we'll have to disagree, Lily. Have a good day. I think it is. Lily thinks it's not. I think it is utterly patronising to say that people are fighting cancer. They are not. They are enduring it. They're doing their best to recover from it, often. Some people decide, I can't be bothered fighting, as the phrase goes, so I'll call it a day. There's no dishonour in being ill. Norma in Hazel Grove. Hiya, Norma.
Hello.
Hello.
I had breast cancer 6 years ago, and I didn't fight a battle. I got better.
You got better, that's
I
it,
got
isn't it?
better.
I
As
recovered.
you agree, I agree with you. It was an illness, and I got better.
Exactly.
In fact, I was meeting 3 other ladies. We all had radiotherapy together, and we all got better.
Oh, well,
and
I'm very...
In fact, I'm going out right now to meet them.
Are you?
Yep.
Oh, well,
yep,
give
yep.
them my fondest. Where are you going?
Oh, we're going to the Leons on the way to Macclesfield.
Oh,
on
yeah.
the crossroads.
Trouble is, there's loads of Liams, is it? Hope you've all got the same one.
Yes, we've met there before.
Good on you, Norma.
You just get better.
You just get better,
Forget
that's
about it then.
Where did we get all this patronising terminology
I
from?
don't know, because every time I hear it, I think, well, I didn't fight, you just carry on. It's
You
not
just
very
carry on.
nice.
It's
not very
horrible,
nice going
yeah.
through the chemotherapy and everything, but
Yeah.
then you get better, so then you live your life.
Excellent. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Norman. I'm glad someone agrees with me.
When I woke up, she was dead.
From a lost night of passion to a living nightmare. Do you believe he didn't do it?
99% of the clients I represent, I am 100% sure committed the crimes they're charged with. Can't say the same about your son.
Criminal Justice continues tonight at 9 on BBC One.
I caught up last night, watched all the back editions, and it did record it proper, so that's good. Caught up last night. It's very good, isn't it? Very, very good. Postlethwaite's brilliant, and we knew that. But what about the kid? Well, he's not that much of a kid, but what about the lad playing the main role? I've never heard of him. And he's superb. But then there's loads of people I've never heard of. Not as many as has not heard of me, obviously.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News. Detectives investigating a house fire in Greater Manchester which killed a 71-year-old woman have arrested a 12-year-old boy and 22-year-old man. Police say 2 French students found murdered in a flat in South London were tied up and stabbed before the flat was set on fire. And Kylie Minogue received her OBE at Buckingham Palace. The Australian singer said it was an incredible honour to get the award, which she was given for her services to music. Manchester's weather, a mix of sunny spells and showers, highs of 20 Celsius. I'm Anna Dawson.
That's funny, because I thought she got it for her services to nice bums.
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
Don't forget that the line on the Metrolink between Piccadilly Gardens and Piccadilly is closed off today for essential engineering works to take place. Services will run between Bury and Altrincham and between Eccles and Victoria. The engineering works are expected to be ongoing now for the remainder of the day. In Bryn, Wigan Road, the A49, temporary traffic lights are still in operation, causing slight delays on the junction with Downall Green Road near to Bryn Railway Station. But aside from that, a fairly quiet afternoon. Don't forget, if you can update me further though, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic. BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. How are you doing? You all right? Belting. 0161 228 2255, or you can email radiomanchester@bbc.co.uk, and you can text us on 07786 206 951. Anne in Stretford. Hiya, Anne.
Hiya, Alan.
What can we do for you?
Well, it was just all this talk about the fighting cancer.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Well, my husband died 20 years ago now it was. He was only 42. He had it very horrible. It was the worst kind of cancer, you know, very quick and rapid. He was diagnosed and died within 3 months. So, I mean, if anyone could have thought, he would. He loved life. He lived life to the full. He worked abroad all over the world. He was an oil engineer. And he died, and that was it. But this woman, talking about fighting it, came into my garden a few months later. My daughter had invited people in for my birthday. And she said, if my husband got cancer, there's no way I would have let him die. I said, you what?
Really?
Yeah. I was breaking my heart, Alan.
I bet you were.
She said, I said, do you think I wanted Dennis to die? I loved him to bits, and my 2 daughters have got no dad now. But she went on and on about it. I'd try every breath, everybody till he got better. I said, well, I hope he keeps fine for you, love. 3 years later, he died. Her husband.
Dearie me.
Didn't wish it on her.
No, I know. You're not a witch, Anne.
I wish I was. I was in that day.
I bet you do.
2 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel any lumps or anything. They just a routine mammogram, you know.
Yeah, lucky you.
But they said, oh, you're very lucky. It's very, very tiny. So they took it out, and I've had the chemo and the radio. And I'm on just tamoxifen now for 5 years. But I'm fine, touch wood. But I mean, if I die, I die. You know, we all have to die sometime.
Well, you've got to die of something, even if it's just not breathing anymore, haven't you?
Got to make room for all the new ones coming along. But it just maddens me when they say, like you, I agree completely with you. You can't fight it, can you?
Well,
it's not a battle.
It's not a battle. You're doing your best to survive. You go to bed, and I'm sure you think when you go to bed, well, am I waking up tomorrow?
Yeah.
You know.
I hide all my dirty books in case I don't wake up and open the door.
well, the trouble is, we now all know they're there, Anne.
Well, I'll lend them to my daughter anyway. She knows where.
Dearie me. Well, my image is... it's all going by me now. Hey, I'm all over the place.
Oh, well, you've got to have a laugh, Alan.
You have indeed. And a bit of a fumble as well.
And I love your programme. I love listening to it. It's fantastic.
Oh, well, we're grateful to you for that. Have a good day.
Sometimes I roar and shout at you. Other times I say, I agree. And today I completely agreed with you.
Oh, well,
Stupid woman got on my nerves.
all we can say is if you agree with me, there's a fair chance you're wrong.
Oh, I am daft me, yeah.
Have a good day,
Oh,
love.
thanks, Alan.
Bye. There you are. Anne in Stretford. What people say to you? They don't mean it maliciously. But fancy saying that to someone. My husband got cancer. I'd make sure he didn't die. You know, Christie Hospital and all the drug companies and all of that, they can't achieve it, but because she's his wife, his husband... Exactly. Yeah. What a thing to say. I mean, I'm sure the woman that said it wasn't being malicious, but what a vile thing to say. People are really crass, aren't they? I guess sitting here, right, saying some of the things I say every day, I ought not to criticise those who say things and manage to hurt people as an aside, but that strikes me as being remarkably insensitive and cruel. George in Saddleworth. Hiya, George.
Good morning, Alan.
Morning, sir.
Just to change the subject a minute, I don't know if you saw it or not, but on Tuesday night there was a programme on television about Dr. Crippen.
I didn't see it. I read all the reports of it.
Very good, I thought.
Yeah.
It's another nail in the coffin of the Angerman Flogging Brigade, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, indeed, the argument... Well, you tell me, you saw the programme.
Well, I saw the programme, and it said that they hanged him, of course, for the murder of his wife. Now, they've found through modern technology now that the remains in the cellar of his house, which were supposed to be that of his wife, weren't even a woman. It was remains of a man.
It was a bloke, I know. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Oh, dear, are you all right?
No.
Yeah, so they hanged him for... I mean, he may well have murdered his wife, but on the evidence they presented to court, which is that there she is in the cellar, it wasn't her.
It weren't just that, Alan. It weren't the full remains of a body. It were only some pieces of a body.
Yeah.
And ironically, it was the part of the body that would had the evidence which would have convicted him. It seems that he was fitted up for it. You know?
Yeah.
Because the police at the time, if you cast your mind back, they hadn't got long over the Jack the Ripper. And they were under tremendous pressure to get results.
Yeah, they needed to get someone, yeah.
That's right, and they got him. He was the first man to be caught through radio. They radioed Canada. He went to
radio in that term. He was on his way. Was it Canada? I thought he was going to America, but no matter.
Canada, anyway, whatever it was.
But the captain recognised him, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, they radioed through, you see.
Yeah.
And they followed him. When they got there, a policeman got on the boat. And they were searching for him. They searched all over, and they went in the toilets, and one of the doors was shut. And he knocked on the door. He said, "Are you cripping?" He said, "No, I'm crapping."
Oh, dear me. the gags get worse. Good on him. People are trying to turn me into Eamon O'Neill, but I'm fighting it. Have a good day, George.
Okay, Alan.
Thank you very much indeed. Alan, you're talking crap. You want every cancer sufferer to just give up and die. John in Warrington. No, I don't want every cancer sufferer to give up and die. I want every cancer sufferer to get better and have a happy life and to raise little bar lambs and stroke small children. Of course I want them to recover. Of course I do. You missed the point, John. You missed the point. The point is people do die from illnesses. That's what happens. It's one of the realities of humanity, of our species. We die from something. And frankly, whether you fight or not fight is a matter of supreme irrelevance. What you do is you get the right treatment and you try to keep your spirits up if you can and stay happy, because there's no point being sad, but you're not fighting. Because if you accept the argument that you must fight cancer, then for those who it kills, you are saying they didn't fight hard enough. Not only are they ill, but they are weaklings and failures to boot. The language is appalling. The principle is fine. Do you think you can settle an argument between me and a mate? Did Val Doonican sing a song called Rafferty's Motor Car? That's Ian from Boothstown. I think you need to talk to Eamon and Diane about that early morning. They have some inside information, I'm led to believe. Jim in Bolton, it's not often I agree with you, Alan, but today I do. To say you lose a battle against cancer is a poor choice of language. You either get better or you don't. It's that simple. That's what he says. Colin has an entirely different view, indeed 180-degree different. There are many times when I agree with you, Alan, about the use of English language, but on this occasion I thought you were insensitive and incorrect. You may remember Pat Seed, a lady who not only fought cancer, but also raised awareness about cancer, and there are many other cases of people who've had the illness and overcome many difficulties with determination and willpower. They may have died from the illness in the end, but their life had been prolonged in many cases for many years longer than their diagnosis might have indicated. We live our lives, and unfortunately some of us do contract life-threatening diseases. When that happens, we can either sit back and do nothing, or we can fight for our lives and the quality of our lives. Perhaps have some consideration for the family who might be listening to you, and if they were, I'm sure they would have disagreed with your comment. Well, I live my life being disagreed with, Colin, and it affects me not one jot. What I can say to you is that I disagree with you emphatically. I'm actually being rather more sensitive than you think, because I'm thinking of the people who die from cancer as people who are losing their lives to an illness, but are not failing. And not failing through lack of commitment. If you think fighting cancer will help you to survive it, then fine. You have whatever lie you want to get through what passes for a crap day. But the truth is, you're just being ill. And yes, keep up your spirits. But if we use language that says you are fighting for your life, you are fighting the disease, then you cannot escape the conclusion that if you don't beat the disease, you've failed. You are a loser. Now, I don't say that of people who die from illnesses. I say they are unfortunate. I say it's a crap hand you've been dealt, but you're not a loser just because you died of an illness. Elizabeth in Blakely. Hiya, Elizabeth.
Hi, Alan. It's just something on similar lines that you've been speaking about.
Okay.
I live in a block of flats in Blakely. There's another 4 or 5 blocks near to where I live. And when I was coming in on Monday afternoon, there was a man and woman at my front door, clipboard and everything, selling funerals. And they were from Avalon in Winslow. Now, they had the gift of the patter and everything, and going through, did they want burying or cremating? And, you know, when you've just come in from shopping, it's the last sort of thing on your mind. And just let him go through everything then, and you have to pay every month. And he wanted £80 deposit there and then. So I thought, you can go and get lost. You're having no money off me. By the same rule, are they allowed to go around touting for... there's a lot of elderly people in this block.
Yes, they are. They are allowed to sell door to door. Yeah, it's not against the law to sell door to door. I mean, if they're selling, as they appear to be, selling a credit plan, then they have to be registered with the or the company has to be registered with the Trading Standards Department, the Consumer Credit people, but the Financial Services Authority, I think is its proper name. But yes, you are allowed to sell things like that door to door.
Never in my life have I, I know you can do it through the funeral directors and do it privately, but I just, when you opened the clipboard, there was all these £20 notes clipped to the side of it.
Oh, that's nice.
So he must have been getting orders off people.
Well, yes. I mean, whether they're selling funerals, double glazing or anything else, I personally would outlaw doorstep sales personnel. I would say, no, it's not allowed to happen. You are not allowed to knock on somebody's front door, ring their bell, telephone them. Well, no, I don't care what they're selling. I would ban doorstep salesmen. One of my ambitions in life is to pick up a newspaper one day and learn that the children of a doorstep salesman have starved to death. Because he never earned it. Exactly, because that's the only way we'll stop them. The only way we will stop doorstep salesmen and women is to close the door and say, I'm not buying off you.
You see, we have security, the concierge, before anybody comes in, has to buzz through and they ask where you're going. So they've come through with somebody because I don't think they'd have let them in.
Well, you find out with the concierge.
Yeah,
find out, because if the concierge is letting people in to knock at your door, then get him sacked and get another.
You see, they had a list of numbers on one piece of paper with circles round certain numbers where they were going back.
Well, that's up to the customer whether they want people to come back. But frankly, my advice to everybody, is never, but never, but never, but never buy anything from a doorstep salesperson, whether it's double glazing, the eternity in a box, a very good on fire, or even dusters off somebody who claims if you don't buy them he'll starve.
Must have been a bit slow if they've got to come out and poaching people for paying up front.
Well, I mean, it is a way, one of the ways that, I mean, there is an argument. Personally, I don't accept it, but there is an argument for people to pre-purchase their funeral. There are lots of people who are worried about how they'll be dealt with once they're dead. Whether they don't want to be a burden on their families and all of that. Frankly, if you can't be a burden on your family at death...
What's the use of having them?
Exactly. Well, God almighty, you've been giving all your life. At least you can do is snatch a bit back on the last day. But there is an argument for the peace of mind that comes from knowing that your funeral arrangements are sorted.
See, one of the questions he said was, how much do you think just a bog-standard funeral would cost? So having arranged one 2 years ago, I said about 1,500. He said, oh, no, it's 2,500 now. So, you know, but it seems to have jumped up a lot all in the matter of 12 months, you know, so... but I just want people to be aware, you know, it's... like you say, you can soon be taken in by all this salesman talk and everything. They've got the gift of the gab, haven't they? They can... you know, he said, if I bought a plot, they could put me one somewhere with a nice view. I said, that wouldn't really apply to me because I wouldn't be seeing the view, would I? I'd be 6 foot under. And, you know, you just got to be careful, haven't you, really? Like you say, even if they're selling dusters or life insurance or whatever. Thanks, Alan, anyway.
Good on you.
Okay,
Good
then.
to talk to you, Elizabeth.
Nice to listen to you on the radio.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Okay, see you, bye.
Bye. There is an argument, and Elizabeth understood it admirably, but there is an argument for people who are concerned. Now, that's usually the elderly, but not always. Young people don't give a stuff about when they die, because they think they're going to live forever, don't they? I'm a bit that way inclined myself, frankly, but there you are. It's scary, isn't it? Yeah, I'll be here in 80 years' time. I'll still be here giving you a hard time. Anyway, there is an argument for those who are worried about their family dealing with it, or possibly even people who've got no family or whatever, and they want to organise their funeral. Get ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. You can do it via some of the... I think Age Concern Help the Aged, and that will help you. Alternatively, you can make an arrangement with a local funeral director, tell him or her exactly what you want, pay for it up front, and what they do, they take out an insurance policy, so that if you go and live too long, you live for another 20 years, then they get the funeral costs get paid by the insurance policy. That's how it works, so that the the funeral director doesn't end up out of pocket. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? And if he goes bust, then the policy's there for another company. That's one of the ways they do it. But all of that's irrelevant. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Don't let me stop you. It's not sordid business. It's sensible if it puts your mind at rest. Death and me, we don't care. But if you do, then... if you move that way, go ahead and do it. It'll put your mind at rest. It's worth every penny. But my objection is selling it or anything else door to door. I think it is despicable. I hate with a passion every doorstep salesperson, whether he's giving away God or whether he's flogging dusters, flogging death in a box, or even double glazing, whatever they're selling. Frankly, I will not buy. And I advise everybody to do the same, because if they never make a sale, they won't come back, and you and me, will enjoy our homes in peace. As I say, one of my little ambitions is to read in the newspaper that a doorstep salesman's children have starved to death through lack of income. Now that would be a warm day. Barry says, Alan, you are selectively choosing a particular definition of fight. Amongst other meanings in my dictionary there is the following: the will to resist, to struggle. Many cancer sufferers display these characteristics, and it is a battle. Therefore, if they unsuccessful in their personal resistance, fight or struggle, they clearly have lost that battle. Believe me, Alan, it is a real fight to try to stay alive during what can be years and years of pain. Finally, stop comparing it to sport and headaches or a sword fight, for goodness sake. There's no comparison. I hope to God you or any member of your family doesn't find out the hard way. There's the thing, you see. There's the thing. The will to resist, to struggle. So are you telling me that those who die of cancer are those who are weak, for they do not have the will to resist? Is that why they died? You see, I thought it was the cancer, the illness, that killed them. I didn't think it was their particular failing, their inadequacy, their lack of sufficient will. I thought they died of an illness. How silly I have been.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News.
Detectives investigating a house fire in Greater Manchester which killed a 71-year-old woman have arrested a 12-year-old boy and a 22-year-old man. Police say 2 French students found murdered in a flat in South London were tied up and stabbed several times before the flat was set on fire. And the model Katie Price and her husband Peter Andre have won substantial damages from the News of the World. The paper had alleged they were bad parents. Manchester's weather, a mix of sunny spells and showers, highs of 20 Celsius. I'm Anna Dawson.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Well, traffic on the M60 seems to be moving well for the moment. No delays, accidents or incidents to report, thankfully. Don't forget, though, if you're using the Metro link, the line's closed off between Piccadilly Gardens and Piccadilly today, whilst essential engineering works take place. Services will run between Bury and Altrincham and between Eccles and Victoria, and those works are likely now to be ongoing for the remainder of the day. Aside from that, no major issues on the motorways. As I say, everything looking fairly clear from what I can see from the camera images around the area. Don't forget, though, if you can update me further, then why not call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Well, we start with the sad news that the former Oldham and Rochdale player Ernie Cooksey has died of cancer at the age of just 28. With more, here's Ewan Doak.
Ernie Cooksey was an Essex boy, starting his first-team career at non-league Crawley, before Ian Dowie signed him for Oldham. He immediately became a cult hero, coming onto the pitch to Benny Hill's song Ernie the Fastest Milkman in the West. After 27 appearances for the Latics, he spent 3 years at Rochdale, where he was equally popular. But he was also fighting a battle with skin cancer, which returned aggressively earlier this year. Despite numerous fundraising efforts by his former clubs and teammates, he lost his battle last night. His partner Louise is expecting their first child in just 5 weeks' time.
The Portuguese media is reporting that Manchester United's assistant manager Carlos Queiroz will be named as the next manager of Portugal. Meanwhile, United have denied that Cristiano Ronaldo will have surgery on an ankle injury in the next few days that would rule him out for up to 6 weeks. Barcelona say they've yet to receive a serious offer from any club to sign Ronaldinho. Manchester City manager Mark Hughes believes he's the manager to get the best out of the Brazilian and remains confident he will get his man.
We're very encouraged at the moment where we stand with the progress in regards to Ronaldinho. We haven't been discouraged in any way, so it's still ongoing, still positive in that respect.
Rochdale have made 2 signings from the side that they beat them, that they did beat in the League Two playoff semi-finals last season. Midfielder Clark Kelty has left Darlington and signed a 1-year deal, while defender Scott Wiseman has agreed a 6-month deal. Curtis Davies has completed a permanent move to Aston Villa from West Brom. He'd been on loan at Villa Park last season, and the former Chelsea midfielder Roberto Di Matteo has succeeded Paul Ince as manager of MK Dons. Cricket, and Andy Flintoff has been left out of England's squad for the first test against South Africa, though Lancashire's Luke Sutton believes that Flintoff is bowling and batting well enough to have returned.
He just does it with real ease. He bowls with good pace and aggression. He comes on and hits the length almost immediately. So few bad balls, genuine bad balls, you could probably count on one hand, probably on 2 fingers. It was excellent for Fred to get some time out in the middle, and I think that innings will do him the world of good. You know, he hit some great shots.
And the squad for that battle against South Africa is unchanged from the one that was involved against New Zealand. And the Speedway tonight, Bellevue's team manager Chris Morton is expecting Peterborough to be a much tougher prospect on their home track. This evening takes up at Kirkmanshume Lane at 7:30.
Every single time I go to the hospital, I get seen straight away, and the treatment I've been getting has been fantastic.
My sister got septicemia through having her bowel twisted, and so she was in intensive care for 3 weeks and came out fine.
The NHF saved my life when I was in a car accident, and I went through the sunroof.
Have you got a story to tell?
Operation NHS.
Operation NHS. Your part.
60 years of the
National Health Service.
All day tomorrow at BBC Radio Manchester.
I'd have been all right. You'd have never got me through the sunroof. Jamie in Maple Bridge. Hiya, Jamie.
Hi, Alan. All right.
Not bad. What you got?
Good. I'm just sort of adding to this debate about terminology used in cancer.
Yeah.
My sister died a couple of years ago, and she was ill for 6 years, and she hated the phrase "fighting it." And it was, I don't know if you listened to the news just then, but it referred to somebody else losing the battle.
Yeah, that's where we all began an hour or so ago.
Right.
Go on,
Was it right when we all began, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, there is another side to it, which is you can sit back and die, or you can be proactive. And if you look at was it the runner, which was called Jane Tomlinson or something like that, which was called?
Yeah.
She stayed alive so long that people were actually doubting whether she ever had cancer. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. So, you know, running, exercise is very, very positive for the body. Equally, diet, you know, there's certain... Obviously, what you've got to do is get the body as strong as possible to defend the body against cancer. So there are certain strategies and lifestyles you can adopt. So, you know, I wouldn't use the word fight. It's not a word like to fight, but you can be proactive about it.
Well, you see, I even in some respects disagree with what you're saying about the woman who did all the running and all of that. We don't have any way of testing whether a person who is proactive survives any longer than if they had not been.
We do.
We don't.
I'll give you an example.
You can't give me an example.
I will try to give you an example.
You can't. It's impossible.
Well, let me try to give you an example.
All right, and I'll tell you why it's impossible when you've wasted your time. Go on.
You and me have both been to Christie today, and we've both been diagnosed with a brain tumour, okay? You decide to lie in bed and you never eat or drink again. I decide to carry on eating, carry on drinking, and the chances are that I'll last a few more days than you do.
Well, you'll last considerably more if I decide to not eat or drink, because after a fortnight I'll be dead of dehydration.
Yes, so that is, you know...
That's not the... Well, I've not died of cancer, I've died of dehydration.
Well, no, very few people die of cancer.
Well,
most people die...
But to make the point, what you need... If somebody sits and does nothing and just lives their life, eats, drinks and all the rest of it, yes, if I decided that I can't face the chemotherapy, I'm going to slash my wrists, jump in a hot bath with an electric fire, then I won't live as long as you. That's for sure. I won't live as long as you. But it may be suicide, but I've actually died from the challenge of facing cancer. All of those things are true. But the reason it is impossible, and this isn't me saying this is some very senior oncologists saying this, and also general science saying this. The only way we will know whether being, I'll use your phrase, proactive or passive makes any difference is if we could plot it for one person, or Or, and we can't plot it for one person, because the one person only does one thing. Or, we look at the hundreds of thousands of people who have had cancer, and we scientifically examine those who have been, to use your word, proactive, and those who have gone to bed and stayed there. The problem is that even that won't help us. And when you look at it scientifically, there is no way of establishing, because we can never have an identical challenge. Because, by that I mean a statistical or a humanity challenge. We can't, because we only have a look at person A and person B. And we all know people who have never done a foot wrong. They've been healthy, they've eaten the right foods, they've been exercising every day, they're fit as butcher's dogs, they go to the doctors because they've had a thing saying you're 40 years of age, you better come in while we look you over. They go in there swaggering because they know there's nothing wrong with them, they've never had a Dell's illness in their life, they've not an ounce of fat on them, they've never smoked, their parents didn't smoke, they've always been healthy. They sit down and the doctor says, you've got cancer, you'll be dead within 6 months. Why? You can't... Not... Pardon?
I don't believe that.
I don't care whether you believe it or not. I'll go and dig up my brother-in-law and see whether it was true.
Well, it's not a fact. You're not...
It's a fact.
It's an opinion you're making there.
No. I'm giving you a fact.
No.
There are people who have been always healthy, got absolutely nothing wrong with them. They've eaten well, they've exercised well, they've done all the things they're meant to do.
Yeah, but you're talking about things that are tangible measurements of good health, whereas there are a lot of intangible measurements of good health.
And then they go to the doctors and they're given a death sentence, effectively, and actually die of it. The reality is that we don't know. We also know of people who've abused their body all their lives, smoked, drunk too much, overweight, and they live a long and glorious life. The human body is not a machine.
No, but one of the biggest causes of cancer is probably stress, and stress is something that's visually unnoticeable. So you might see somebody who's fat and smokes and drinks, but if they've got a low stress level, you know, they may well have a much better chance of avoiding illnesses like cancer.
I bow to your superior knowledge, and next time I'm discussing with an oncologist, I'll put the stupid cretin right. 0161 228 2255. If you've something to say, feel free. Valerie in St Helens, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine, thanks.
Good.
So I don't know about proactive, I'm very hyperactive, because I've just found out recently, which I knew myself from, I'm telling the experts that I've got ADHD, which is a hyperactivity thing. It's but also my daughter's got it, so I've told the doctors that my daughter's got it as well, and when we get going together, we bounce off each other. But also what the last contributor said about stress. I mean, stress, I'm calling about my friend. And I've also had a high stress through my life. I mean, what I've been through, people have only been into in their worst nightmares, but this is not about me. I've dealt with it, I'm fine, I'm going on with my life. But my friend, he used to be a firefighter, he used to be a paramedic, and a few weeks ago, myself and my youngest daughter, we went down to London to see him, and he told us about the horrors and the atrocities that he had to deal with while there in Wellington, where he was a firefighter, and it gave him nightmares. And we're talking about a bloke who's had a triple heart bypass since, and he's got an embolism in his heart, and he's dying, and this is a lot of years on, and it's still scarred him. It's post-traumatic stress. But going on more to the reason why I have rung, I mean, you said about finding out you've got something and being given the chance to fight. This poor bugger has not been given a chance to fight. If I can I went for an operation on Monday, and before I did that, I've taken this to heart, and I want to help this man so much, because we've got so much in common. We've had parallel lives. It is surreal how we have had parallel lives. But my head was banging before I went in for the operation. I didn't even sleep that night before. I spent the time writing a letter to Gordon Brown, because my friend, his name is John Patrick Grant.
Well, don't give me any more names, Valerie, because...
Oh, sorry, okay.
It's all right, you haven't got his permission to give his name out on the radio.
I'm sorry,
Carry
no.
on. It's all right, don't worry.
Well, myself and my children, we're privileged to call him by the name he wants. but everyone else knows him by his formal name. But but from the start, we were put into his little privilege circle. But if I may start, I mean, what I did ask, because I'm not trying to take over your programme, but if I did it this way, please, it would explain everything, and I could just elaborate a little bit at the end. I wrote a poem about him. I'm a writer, and
well, we don't do. You're not going to read a poem, are you? We don't do poems.
Okay then. Okay. Well, I wrote a poem about him because he is a descendant of Robert the Bruce, and it can be proved. But even just his courage alone, is something to be admired. I mean, and I sent it as well. I was trying to send it to Gordon Brown as well as this letter, but I mean the site doesn't work. A bit like the country. I mean, I've just tried again to send the letter, and I mean the site's been down since the 23rd of June. So what I'm going to do, this tenacious little bitch is going to go print it all off, and tonight I'm going to fax it off to make sure he does get it, and he does get his finger out and try helping my friend because he deserves it.
What help do you want the Prime Minister to give your friend?
Because, well, actually, the friend told me that he's actually spoken with Gordon Brown.
Yeah, what help do you want the Prime Minister to give your friend?
What happened was, when the friend left the fire service in Wellington, he became a successful businessman. But that gave him, luckily...
Okay, let me try the question again, Valerie. Remember the question.
Well,
what help do you want the Prime Minister to give to your friend?
Dying.
Yes, I know.
He's
What?
not being given the chance to at least...
Valerie, don't give me any more facts as you see them. My question is, what help do you want the Prime Minister to give your friend?
Every time my friend tries to get help in this country, he's stonewalled.
Yeah, perhaps it's because he never says what it is he wants.
No.
What help do you want the Prime Minister to give to your friend?
My friend can be fixed in America. He luckily in inverted commas, had 140 grand in his back pocket when he first came to this country. He had to go to Florida to get a triple.
Let me try again. What help do you want the Prime Minister to give to your friend?
To at least have the chance to...
Yeah, what help do you want the Prime Minister to give your friend? What do you want the Prime Minister to do?
To at least get him the surgeon that is prepared to help him. Because the surgeons here won't help him. He's been for angiograms, cardiograms, and they just say, oh no, can't do anything, sorry, but the story is actually spoken to the surgeon who actually did the triple heart bypass in America. He's actually told these surgeons here to talk to the surgeon, and they won't. But I mean, the thing is, in the state he can't fly there. He's too ill to fly. All he wants is to be fixed so he can go back to his kids in New Zealand.
So to go back to his kids in New Zealand, so you want the British government to spend money to fly him to America, or to bring an American surgeon to here, so that he can then go and live in New Zealand?
No.
How will he get to New Zealand if he can't fly? He's going to be on a boat for years.
He's actually a British citizen.
Are you making the case, because we have to get through the miasma, are you making the case that he could be cured if a particular surgical procedure was available in this country?
Yeah. But the thing is, for his own defence, he knows that he's got a good few years to work left in him. He's never been without work. He can't work now. He's become
let's try and keep our mind on the subject. The subject being, you seem to think that the National Health Service is saying, well, you tell me what they're saying. Are they saying, we will not help you because you've spent money on private medicine? Or are they saying, we're not helping you because we don't have the skills to do what you want doing?
To be honest, as I was driving up to Alder Hay
Which was it? Which of those two was it?
I actually heard that they'd made a breakthrough at Manchester Withington Hospital.
Yeah, which of those two was it? I heard that as well. Which of those two?
They're refusing to help him outright.
So the National Health Service said, go home and die, we don't want to hear from you anymore.
We can't go home and die because...
Well, stay here and die.
Well, that's basically...
Well, when I say go home, I mean out of hospital. They're saying that all we're going to do is wait till you're dead and bury you.
It's treated with contempt, because when he waits for an ambulance and needs an ambulance, he gets sent to the police, and they're ill-trained. He's having a heart attack. They come in with a gung-ho attitude. He doesn't need the police. He's not a violent person. He wouldn't hurt a hair on anybody's head. I've trusted him with my daughter. I've been with him. He's in the same house, in the same place. He's the most gentle, nicest person you could ever meet. And then he gets the police turn up as though he's some sort of reprobate or criminal or something, and he's not.
Valerie, if he's able to ring the police, he's able to ring me. I'll happily talk to him. What I can't do is do anything via yourself. But thank you for your call. It's been fascinating. There are strange things happening around the world, are there not? 0161 228 2255. What have you got to say today? Feel free. You can. Yes. There's a wonderful story of a student doctor who can't get work.
This afternoon from 2, join me, Matt White, sitting in for Becky, and you'll meet a Manchester singer-songwriter fresh back from Glastonbury.
I'll tell you about that there doctor, or would-be doctor, in a moment. But before that, if you've something to tell me, 0161 228 2255, or you can email and text, or both.
95.1 FM, DAB Digital Radio, and the World Wide Web. This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, police investigating a house fire which killed a 71-year-old grandmother arrest a 12-year-old boy. And Katie Price wins damages from the News of the World.
Ernie Cooksey dies of cancer at just 28.
This afternoon, we've got some sunny spells and some scattered heavy showers. Top temperatures, 20 Celsius.
And all seems fairly quiet on the M66 at the moment, not doing too badly from junction 2 at Bury, all the way down to the M60 where it meets up at Simister Island.
Good afternoon, I'm Anna Dawson. Detectives investigating a house fire in Greater Manchester which killed a 71-year-old woman have arrested a 12-year-old boy and a 22-year-old man. Hamida Begum died 10 days ago following a blaze at her home in Bolton. Her daughter and granddaughter remain critically ill in hospital. 3 firefighters also received hospital treatment. This morning, 2 people from the Great Lever area have been arrested on suspicion of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. They're currently being questioned by police. There have been more complaints in the Commons over the planned closure of post offices in Cheshire. 23 post offices are closing in the county. Sir Nicholas Winterton, the Conservative MP for Macclesfield, says it's another example of the way rural areas are being run down.
In my own constituency, 6 post offices are down for closure and under consultation currently. They are profitable enterprises. Why should profitable enterprises be closed? And why should rural areas be put at a further disadvantage?
But the Post Office Minister, Pat McFadden, said some people think it's actually urban areas that are being disadvantaged by the plan.
The Honourable Member thinks that rural areas are being put at a disadvantage. I do say to him that he should perhaps be cautious about saying that the post offices which are closing are profitable. The post office network is losing £500,000 a day.
And you're being urged to have your say about plans to close 3 post offices in Salford. The branches under threat are on Lewis Street in Patricroft, Oldfield Road and Langworthy Road. You've got until the 21st of July to make your views known. Salford Council's collecting opinions via a questionnaire available in the 3 branches or online. Detectives say 2 French students who were found dead after a fire at a flat in South London had been tied up and brutally attacked. The men, who were both aged 23, were repeatedly stabbed. One person was seen running away from the murder scene. 8 men aged between 18 and 25 have been arrested in a crackdown on robbery and burglary in Greater Manchester and Cheshire. 3 of them were arrested following raids in Middleton and Rochdale this morning. 5 other men were also arrested. It follows around 40 robberies and burglaries in Greater Manchester and Cheshire from March, where men armed with knives and hammers threatened people and stole high-performance cars which were abandoned in Rochdale. In one case, a 13-year-old boy was grabbed by the throat and his mother threatened with a metal bar while the offenders tried to steal a car. The model Katie Price and her husband Peter Andre have been to the High Court in London to accept substantial libel damages from the News of the World. The paper had published an article based on an interview with the couple's former nanny, portraying them as uncaring parents. Outside court, Katie Price made this statement to reporters.
We came here today to see that justice was done and that our names were cleared. Now that the paper has accepted the story was not true, apologised to us and paid us damages and costs, we believe the record has been set straight and our names have been cleared. Thanks for coming. Woo-hoo!
And Kylie Minogue's received her OBE at Buckingham Palace. The Australian singer said it was an incredible honour to get the award, which she was given for her services to music.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Ian Cheeseman.
The former Alderman Rochdale footballer Ernie Cooksey has died at the age of just 28. He passed away last night as a result of skin cancer. He leaves his partner Louise, who's due to give birth to their child in 5 weeks. The Portuguese media is reporting that Manchester United's assistant manager Carlos Queiroz will be named as the next manager of Portugal. Meanwhile, United have denied that Cristiano Ronaldo will have surgery and an ankle injury in the next few days that would rule him out for up to 6 weeks. England's cricket squad has been named and it's unchanged for the first test against South Africa, which means no return for Lancashire's Andy Flintoff. And in today's women's semi-finals at Wimbledon, the 5th seed Elena Demencheva starts as underdog against the 4-time champion Venus Williams before Serena Williams meets the Chinese wildcard Zheng Xiang.
BBC Radio Manchester satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, this afternoon the cloud is going to thin and break at times, so we will see some sunny spells, but at other times it'll thicken up enough to bring us a shower or two. Those showers are a bit hit and miss, and they could be quite heavy when they do turn up. It feels quite warm though, with just a gentle breeze and top temperatures of 20 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255. BBC Radio Manchester.
Hiya. You all right? Good. 0161 228 2255. You got something to say? That's fine by me. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And of course you can text on 07786 206 951. Easy. Let's do this. Frank says, very clever. Clever to play with the English language this way, but utterly insensitive. The body is fighting for life, whether you like to describe it that way or not, and my dad's spirit buoyed him up until we got married 33 years ago, and after the event he faded by the day. Tell me there was no mental state of mind in that. I don't quite understand the sentence, but never mind. My good mate Ian knew he would never make 40 because no one with his condition ever does. Again, he used his indomitable spirit to fight it until his time came. I have a lifetime diagnosis. I don't sit here blubbing. I get on with it. Fight, react, resist, recover. It's all the same thing. It's not lying down and taking it. It's not a matter of failure or lack of will if the infection overwhelms your body. It's a matter of regret. You see, Frank, that's it. I don't understand. You and I agree. It is a matter of regret. It's not a matter of saying, if only you'd fought a bit harder. See, if fighting makes a difference, if fighting, as that's the modern phrase, if fighting makes a difference, then those who fail should have fought harder. I don't want to insult the others. Dear Alan, a man phoned the other day about whether or not you need a chip in a passport to gain entry to the USA. Can you tell us the outcome? I never found out. So no, in simple terms, I can't tell you that. I never did find out, because it wasn't me that was going. We pointed him in the direction of the embassy, and we'd rather hope he found out from the embassy before he set out on his journey. But we never found out, so no, I can't tell you, which is perhaps a shame. It would have made a much better programme item if I'd have said, oh yes, and I remember it was this. But sadly, I have only the truth to offer you. I know nothing.
Mornings sound better with Eamon O'Neill and Diane Oxbury.
Eamon and Diane.
3 things to take to a desert island. All right, first up for me, it has to be a wind-up radio.
So a radio that sits there, so there's a ship over there, and you turn around and it's just a wind-up. One of those.
Eamon and Diane and you.
Well, I was on a Virgin train about 18 months ago, and I went to open the sliding door. As it opened slowly, a girl sort of suddenly appeared who was sort of sat down looking at me. I was opposite her. And since then I've had a complete phobia about those doors. I can't go near one.
The station with Eamon and Diane for breakfast.
It's the last thing I'd like.
Back tomorrow morning from 6 at BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. 0161 228 2255. Feel free. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. I want to read you this letter, which I find intriguing. I'm fascinated that people often ascribe opinions to me. and I'm not sure what they've based them on. There are certain basic principles that I flog to death. Capital punishment, dead against it. Borders, can't be doing with them. Immigration, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Dogs, horrible things. You know, there are certain things that I'm happy to nail to the mast, but there are other things when I don't actually hold a point of view. And yet people tell me that's what I think, like this email from Simon in Warrington. Alan, I like your show because you sometimes do not allow facts to get in the way of a good conversation. Here's my point. Water fluoridation. If you can show me one double-blind study that demonstrates the dental benefits of sodium fluoride in the water supply, I'll not continue to pester you about it. Your advocacy of water fluoridation seems to be an entranced view, as you give no actual scientific evidence to support your view. Because the government says it's good for you doesn't qualify as evidence. And I'm afraid that it does constitute forced mass medication, which is another thing you get wrong. If, however, your views on this are not entrenched, but you're open to researching the facts about the issue, there's a book named The Fluoride Deception by Christopher Bryson, an investigative journalist who came to the subject from your side of the argument. He wanted to know why people were saying bad stuff about fluoridation, and what he found in his book. He includes in his book documents that show water fluoridation for exactly what it is. Now, I don't mind the letter or even the implication, but I can't remember ever saying that I'm for or against the fluoridation of water. I have used arguments from both sides, depending who I was talking to, but I don't have a view about the fluoridation of water. I actually don't have a view. I don't even care. My teeth are fine, thank you very much. Now, the system round here, and I've explained it before, the system round here is that the Water Authority will only decide to fluoridate the water, for it's a matter, in terms of the cost, it's almost insignificant. Indeed, it's too small to care. But the Water Authority around here say they will fluoridate the water if the elected representatives of the people round here, that's all over the northwest in our case, say they want them to do so. And until then, or until there's legislation telling them to do it, they won't bother doing it. So that's fine. And of course it's mass medication. How can it be anything else? We mass medicate people by giving them aluminium in the water. Extraordinary. But there you are. He seems to have deduced that I'm in favour of it, so fine. Go happily on in your misunderstanding. I have no difficulty with that. But Simon, always good to hear from you. 0161 228 2255. I wasn't complaining that people attribute opinions to me I don't have. It's far better than being ignored, which I just simply couldn't cope with. It's just gone 1:10. I mentioned this just as we were coming up to the 1 o'clock news. And I'd be intrigued to know your point of view. The story's a simple one. It was in the newspapers yesterday, you may have seen it, and some of them I've got it in today, so, you know, it depends what papers you read, whether you've got the story or not. But there's a young man, and he wants to be a doctor. He's very, very clever. Very clever indeed. He's 18 years of age, and he wants to be a doctor. He wants to train to be a doctor, and he was invited to apply to Imperial College in London, and they, to all intents and purposes, accepted him as a student of medicine at Imperial College, and he was dead chuffed because he was on his way to training to become a doctor. He's got all the relevant qualifications, the A-levels at the right grades and all of that. He worked very hard to get them. He had A grades, 4 A grades at A-level, and that would entitle him to go off and train to be a doctor. So they, to all intents and purposes, I don't know the procedure, that's why I'm hedging my bets with that phrase, but to all intents and purposes, he was accepted as a medical student at Imperial College in London. That was that. Fine. And then they do all the background checks that they do on this kind of thing. And they discovered that he had a conviction for burglary some time before. Now, he's only 18 years of age, but they discovered that he had a conviction for burglary 2 years earlier. He was given a 4-month period of community service, which he completed to the satisfaction of all. But Imperial College said, sorry, we don't want you. You're a criminal. We don't want you. What do you say to that? 18-year-old guy, clever as anything, done really well in his A-levels, worked hard, always intent on being a doctor, got one offence for burglary, taking part with others in the burglary of a house 2 years earlier, given a sentence of 4 months community service, did his sentence, was an exemplary community service personage, did it all perfectly fine, but now it's getting in the way of being a doctor. What do you say to that? Should he be allowed to train to be a doctor? Should he be given another chance? Or is it, that's it, you are damned for life? What do you say? 0161 228 2255. John in Crewe, about something else, I suspect. Hiya, John.
Hi, Alan.
What have you got?
A problem. Do you know it's about this BBC player?
Very little.
Yeah, well, I sort of went onto it and run it, and I thought, I'm going to watch a programme. And all I'm watching is a few seconds, and then some rings turning round, and then a few more seconds, and the rings turning round. God, it's going to take me all day to watch an hour's programme here.
I don't think it's meant to be like that. I was, when they were trying it out about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I was one of the people. They just use people in the building, you know, and they said, we'll do it for you, and then we'll work it all out so you can use it, and then you can tell us what it's like. Unfortunately, I've got an Apple computer, and the answer it was only a trial. So I went on, and all, it wouldn't talk to me. Not a million chances, no. But it seems to work okay now. Have you got broadband?
Well, I've got one of these dongles. I've got my dongle plugged in.
I'm not asking you how you entertain yourself. I'm asking you whether you've got broadband.
That's meant to be broadband.
Oh, right. Well, a simple yes would have done it, but the picture was interesting. So as far as you're concerned, you've got broadband?
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me a moment. Richard, he's got his dongle plugged in. Does that mean he's got broadband? All right, you're a fattler, are you? I presume so, he said. Right, well, we've got that one out the way, so your system is sufficiently able to take the amount of information in enough time to reproduce it on screen. That's what we're trying to establish.
Oh, right. Well, I pressed the download, and it downloaded, and it installed, and then I said play, and I just get a few seconds, and it stops, and then I get another few seconds. And...
Oh, dear. All right, well, clearly I'm not going to be able to help you, because I'm in a complete and utter fog. But the system...
I just went out last night, and I put my thing on to play, and I didn't press the bloody button for it to actually do it, so when I come back, all my hours of taping and all sort of not there at all.
All right. Well, you know, that's if you've not pressed the right buttons, that's fine. But this. So you've downloaded a program.
Yeah.
And
when you wanted on Monday when the tennis was on.
Oh, the criminal justice. Very good. Without the rings, it's very, very good. I don't know is the answer, but I bet somebody does who's listening. Has that happened to anybody else with the... Have you tried doing it again?
Well, no. I mean, I'm not that sort of...
I'm just thinking that, A, something might have gone wrong whilst you were doing it, something that we know now about. B, you might have actually... This is usually the case when mine doesn't work. B, I've done something wrong, and the thing just laughs at me and sends the rings and all the other things just to show what a complete and utter tit I am when it comes to doing. That's what the IT stands for, you know. The T stands for tit. Idiotic tit it stands for in our house.
Well, I qualify as well.
Oh, are you there as well? You're excellent. I think there's more of us than them, you know, but never mind. We've got them surrounded. And so it may be that there's some operator error, or it might have just been a glitch in the system. Have another crack at it, but if anyone knows, if anyone can answer John's problem, I'd love to hear it, because I'm always prepared to learn.
I'm sorry about the funny emails I keep sending you occasionally.
I didn't know it was you.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh dear. Yeah, I'm sorry, if only because, well, I wouldn't mind if they were funny.
Oh, thank you.
Have a good day, John.
Yeah, okay.
Cheers, mate. So you're that, John, are you? Yeah, we've got your number, pal. Anyway, there it is. He uses a dongle to create broadband. That's that. Eh? So he uses a dongle to create broadband. I don't understand that, but that's it. That's what he does. He's used the BBC iPlayer to record Monday evening's Criminal Justice. A very good programme, I hasten to add. But now when he comes... It's downloaded okay, or appears to have done, but now when he comes to play it back, it will only play a moment or two, and then what he describes as circles appear on the screen. It may well be that he's been taken over by the Chinese Olympics. All things are possible, but does anybody know what's going on and how he can resolve that? I've sent him away to download it again, and that might do it, but if not, it'll keep him out of my hair for a couple of hours. John in Wallington says, Alan, when you die, I know what will be written on your gravestone. I don't care. Well, who cares what they write on my gravestone? I'll be dead. I'll be dead. I suspect there'll be nobody coming and pinching it like they've done with that dead bloke from the pop group. You know, the pop group bloke from Joy Division that committed suicide, and somebody's been at Macclesfield, I think it was, been in the graveyard. Ian Curtis. They've nicked his gravestone. And, you know, I don't suppose he's bothered. His family might be a bit peed off, but I don't suppose he's bothered a jot. Phil from Bagley says, my wife and I have been to the USA this year. We do not have chipped passports, but we had to have 4 fingerprints done and iris recognition pictures taken. That's Phil in Bagley. I went to New York in, was it January? It seems years ago now. Anyway, just recently, earlier this year. And I, too, had to have my fingerprint done, an electronic gadget, and my iris done. And I've no idea whether my passport's got a chip in it or not. I found a fish in there once.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News.
Detectives investigating a house fire in Greater Manchester which killed a 71-year-old woman have arrested a 12-year-old boy and a 22-year-old man. Police say 2 French students found murdered in a flat in South London were tied up and stabbed several times before the flat was set on fire. And the model Katie Price and her husband Peter Andre have won substantial damages from the News of the World. The paper had alleged they were bad parents. Manchester's weather, a mix of sunny spells and showers, highs of 20 Celsius. I'm Anna Dawson.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
If you're travelling on the M62, everything seems fairly quiet between Junction 9 at Winwick through Junction 12 at the Eccles interchange. Thankfully, no major accidents or incidents to report to you. And if you're using the M66 again, no major delays. I just checked the cameras between Junction 2 at Bury all the way down to the M60, and again, all seems fairly quiet for the moment. Now, don't forget, of course, if you're using the Metrolink at any point today, the line's closed between Piccadilly Gardens and Piccadilly due to essential engineering works. Services will run between Bury and Altrincham and between Eccles and Victoria whilst those works take place. Hopefully, though, they should be finished by the end of today. If you can update me further, why not call in on the travel line? The number's 0161 244 4951. I'm Carla Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester.
With 2020 traffic through until midnight.
Through until midnight.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Steve in Bolton says, your first caller inquired about gardening services that could be provided by people on community service orders. I can explain with some confidence the procedure. Community schemes and programmes are suggested by local housing and community associations as well as the local council. These are then put forward to the organisation that controls the running of the community service orders. Owing to the fact that a minimum of 8 offenders should be trained, assessed as fit for completing each task, and the short-term nature of the turnaround in offenders, these schemes usually last for a couple of weeks. As at least 2 supervisors should be in attendance on any one scheme, it is deemed not cost-effective that individual gardens should be maintained. I suggest the chap gets in touch with the RNIB, Royal National Institute for the Blind, because the gentleman who came on, Jimmy, said he was blind, or similar, who will point him toward an at-cost provider. If he's a tenant of Bolton at home, they also may be able to help. So there you are. So they don't do individual gardens. If there was a group of people and the local authority or the housing association or other organisation approach the probation service, then that might get done, but they don't do it for individual gardens because 2 supervisors have to be there, and they'd be stood there supervising when 2 are digging right beggery. Gwyn in Orwich, this is for John. You don't need to download, just press play. But he might not have enough megs. Is that megabytes? Good old meg. You might not have enough megs for downloads. So there you are. So you don't download. So it's like when you want to listen again on Radio Manchester's website. You go there and you don't download it. You just tell it to play at the time you want it. I think that's right, because in the case of television programmes, they probably don't want you to download it and thus be able to watch it for the rest of your life, because they don't have the rights to give it you in that way. They probably only have the rights for you to play it for a given length of time. It's for people who missed it, if you like, or people who want to time shift what they watch. It's not for people, I suspect. It's not to allow people to create their own excellent library of old programmes. So I suspect what Gwyn in Horwich is saying is right, and I suspect it's built that way. Alan, read the BBC iPlayer. Your caller's problem is caused by the fact that all programmes on the player, all right, all programmes on the player are protected to prevent copying. I believe there are ways around this, but as I don't record from it, I don't know any more. I've no doubt an internet search will help. So there you are, Brian. Thank you for that. Everybody knows bar me. With iPlayer, you have the choice to watch it on the website or download it, and then you have 7 days to watch it on your computer. Otherwise, it just, I don't know, glitches. It's no good looking at me, I've no idea. Julie says, clearly this is absurd. She's not talking about the iPlayer. She's talking about the young man who was involved in a burglary with others, 16 years of age. He received a community service order for 4 months, and he served that in exemplary style. He decided, hang on a minute, this is not the way I want to go. So then he worked damned hard at school, ended up with 4 A-levels at A grade, so the top. Can't get better than that. Well, you could get more, but A's the top. So he got the 4 educational requisites. He applied to Imperial College London to train as a doctor, or to go to medical school there. They said, yeah, OK, to all intents and purposes. Then when they did the background check, they discovered, well, it was slightly more complicated than that, in that he need not have told them the conviction was expired. But somebody advised him and say, look, be honest, tell them everything, and then you're in the clear. So he did tell them, having not needed to, and they said, nothing doing, you're not getting the place. Julie says, clearly this is absurd. In theory, this doctor in training may be at a higher risk of nicking a few quid from the staff room, maybe, But it seems in this case the relevant authorities should have exercised their discretion. A minor offence was committed when the individual was a teenager. He's since studied to a high level and, in my view, should be allowed to continue his studies. Julie, thank you very much for that. What do you think? Do you have a point of view on that subject? It fascinated me all evening yesterday. I kept thinking about it, and I couldn't for the life of me think of one reason why the young man shouldn't be allowed to carry on or shouldn't be allowed to undergo his training. Training to be a doctor, it's ages and ages and ages before you get near a human being. Ages and ages. So there's plenty of time for him to demonstrate that he is a fine fellow rather than a fine felon. Exactly. Ages. So it really does sound silly. But there you are. The world is often silly. Ian in Stockport. The congestion charge, along with public transport improvements, has become a well-known phrase whilst listening to media reports. In 2013, what part of this phrase will you be cursing if you are 1. Sitting in your car behind even more constantly stopping buses? Sitting in your car thinking about how you've just paid towards the cost of these extra buses, which are slowing you down. Sitting in your car in the single lane towards Manchester whilst the odd empty bus flies past in an underused bus lane. Sitting in your car behind all those school-run 4x4s who don't pay extra because they haven't crossed the boundary. Sitting on a bus wishing the idiot with the horrid music would turn it off. Sitting on a bus wishing it would get you to your destination in 30 minutes like your car used to do, instead of a 90-minute epic journey. Trying to get on a bus but the driver won't let you with the picture frame you're carrying. Standing at a smashed-up bus stop in the wind and rain. Watching a news report of terrorist bombs on Manchester trains and buses while your partner was in the car. Do you really want more public transport? So says Ian in Stockport. A selfish man or just a realist? I don't know. I rarely use public transport, very rarely, unless you count flying to London or the like. I'm going to London. I've got to go to London in August. And I've already decided to drive. Yeah, because why not? You've got a car when you're there, saves a lot of messing about. Yeah, so I'm going to London in August, over a weekend, so I'm going to drive down. Stuff the environment. Yeah, I think it's August bank holiday weekend, if I remember correctly, but there you are. What the hell? Alan, the father who said his daughter, who terrorised a pensioner, fell in with the wrong crowd. Did you hear it on the news? That young lass that's been given a fairly long ASBO for terrorising a pensioner at 1:30 a.m. on one occasion at least. Anyway, the father was on the news, you heard him, saying his daughter had fallen in with the wrong crowd. Simon says in Warrington, I'm sure that's what the rest of the parents are saying. They fell in with that girl. She's horrible. Yeah, that's what the parents will have been saying. I agree with you. Bring back public humiliation. Yes, but who would you put in the stock, Simon? Would you put the girl in, or would you put the father in, who appears to say that my daughter wouldn't have done this had she not been in with the wrong crowd? But you have to say, I'm sorry, sir, but you have to say, 1:30 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, why hadn't you gone out 3 hours earlier looking for her to drag her in by a hair if necessary? Exactly. Alan, you said the young man who was very clever and wanted to be a doctor. He can't be that clever to go out and burgle. The word thick springs to mind. Trevor in Rochdale. Well, I'm not sure that burgling says you're either clever or not clever. You may well be at that moment misguided without a shadow of doubt. But unfortunately, it doesn't mean you're not clever. And are we to punish the man for what the 16-year-old did? It does strike me as crazy. Surely a 16-year-old shouldn't have held against them for the remainder of their life everything they did, should they? Dave in Bolton says, "Hi, Alan. I think there may be some who will dance on your grave." Oh, good. That'll be nice. I'll have it boarded. Yeah. I'm not going to have a grave. I've no idea what's going. Do you know? I have no idea what's going to happen. What my funeral will be. I have no idea. I don't care either. But I have absolutely no idea. Now, first of all, I don't know when I'm going to snuff it, so it won't matter. I'm not planning for it. But I've got absolutely no idea what's going to happen when I'm dead. Well, I know one thing that's going to happen. It's all going to end. That's it. It's over. There's nothing else beyond that. But I've no idea. I don't know whether I'm going to be cremated. I don't know whether there's going to be a funeral. I don't know whether I'm just going to be, I don't know, as I always say, left by the bins. I've no idea. I don't. It's bizarre, I'm sure. But I haven't got an opinion as to what... There's nothing that I want to happen. I mean, you know, somebody could organise a bishop. We could have a midnight mass that goes on for 5 hours. I don't care. I'll be dead. It won't matter. I can't... I'm not unique in this. I can't be unique in this. I'm not one of those people that just says, well, I don't care what happens when I'm dead. I've never actually given it a thought about what will happen, other than it'll be interesting, not to me, because I won't be here, but it'll be interesting for those who have to make the decision, whether they're the authorities, they might even be the prison authorities, whether the authorities decide about what to do, or whether it's my then widow or whatever. I don't have a view. There isn't something you can do to get it right. Very strange. David says, Alan, I believe that I'm fighting cancer, and as far as I know, I haven't got the disease. I started my fight by giving up smoking and staying out of smoke-filled rooms. Then, by being careful about food. Yeah, it's wise. Very wise indeed. Yeah. I like not eating burgers, crisps and the like. Then I took up walking and going to the gym. Some would say I'd sooner have cancer. I say at 68 years of age, I've never been happier. And I've just returned from a walking holiday in the Canary Islands. So far, I'm winning the fight against cancer. Maybe the time to fight it and other diseases is before one gets it, like me. Yeah, if we're going to fight, that's the time to do it. Fight when you've got a chance. Paul, talking about the potential doctor, as he describes him, which is a good term. Paul in West Horton, the only reason I can understand for withdrawing their offer of the course is oversubscription of the course. Unfortunately, in this day and age, the young man has given them the reason to pick him as one of the ones to be dropped, that will not allow claims of race or sex discrimination. That's interesting, isn't it? But of course, you don't know the gentleman's race. You only know his gender, because I said it was a lad. But that is where the clue lies about gender, isn't it, really? So I'm guilty there. Alan, the recent report on the assault of a pensioner by a teenager, well, it's just high spirits, surely. Bob, you're so kind. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And, of course, you can text us on 07786 206 951. Boris Johnson is once again in the newspapers. He does seem to manage it, but I don't know yet whether his daily hit rate on the newspapers has been as high as the daily hit rate of his predecessor, Ken Livingstone. No idea, but he does well at getting himself in the paper. But today, this is what he's quoted as saying. Well, first of all, I'll read the top line. The risk from violent crime is now so high that people should walk away if they see someone else in trouble, in case they end up losing their own life. That was the depressing warning, as it's described in the Daily Mail, the depressing warning yesterday from the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. I'll read it to you again, slowly. The risk from violent crime is now so high that people should walk away if they see someone else in trouble, in case they end up losing their own life. Boris Johnson is quoted as saying precisely that. His warning is a dramatic change from his stance last year when he told citizens to take a risk and tackle thugs, saying the chances of being stabbed were microscopic. But now he's the Mayor of London. He says, walk on by. That's the headline in the Daily Mail. Boris Johnson says, if you see somebody in trouble, in other words, getting beaten up, what you should do is walk on by. Don't get involved. Now, I presume he means walk on by and then call the cops, and they'll be round within the week. But he says don't get involved. It's not your responsibility. It's not your fight. It doesn't matter. Why should you risk it? Very, very community-spirited of him, wouldn't you say? What do you say? Is he right? Is that what you should do now? Is that what you should do? Think, that lad's getting stabbed to death. It's a bugger, innit? And go home.
BBC Radio Manchester. Headline News.
Detectives investigating a house fire in Bolton which killed a 71-year-old woman have arrested a 12-year-old boy and a 22-year-old man. Police say that 2 French research students found murdered in a flat in South London were tied up and stabbed several times before the flat was set on fire. The model Katie Price and her husband Peter Andre have won substantial damages from the News of the World. The paper had alleged they were bad parents. Manchester's weather, a mixture of sunny spells and showers this afternoon, highs of 20 Celsius. I'm Michelle Adamson.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Well, thankfully, it's a fairly quiet afternoon out on the main routes around the area. We're not doing too badly on the M62 and the M56 in and out of Manchester from the M60 towards Junction 9, the Lim interchange, where it meets up once again with the M6. No major problems through the roadworks on Key Street, the A34. Traffic seems to be maintaining a steady speed on the diversion, which takes you via Water Street, Liverpool Road and Deansgate, because that stretch between Atherton Street and Byram Street's closed off between Granada Studios and the Manchester Opera House. Just a quick reminder as well that the Metro Link, the line's closed today between Piccadilly Gardens and Piccadilly due to essential engineering works, which will take place now for the remainder of the day. We'll keep you updated, and services for the moment will run between Bury and Altrincham and between Eccles and Victoria. Don't forget, if you can update me further, call in. The number's 0161 244 4951. I'm Carla Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Good afternoon, I'm Ian Cheeseman. The former Oldham and Rochdale footballer Ernie Cooksey has died of cancer at the age of just 28. With more, here's Ewan Doak.
Ernie Cooksey was an Essex boy, starting his first-team career at non-league Crawley, before Ian Dowie signed him for Oldham. He immediately became a cult hero, coming onto the pitch to Benny Hill's song Ernie, the fastest milkman in the West. After 27 appearances for the Latics, he spent 3 years at Rochdale, where he was equally popular. But he was also fighting a battle with skin cancer, which returned aggressively earlier this year. Despite numerous fundraising efforts by his former clubs and teammates, he lost his battle last night. His partner Louise is expecting their first child in just 5 weeks' time.
The Portuguese media is reporting that Manchester United's assistant manager Carlos Queiroz will be named as the next manager of Portugal. Meanwhile, United have denied that Cristiano Ronaldo will have surgery on an ankle injury in the next few days that would rule him out for up to 6 weeks. Barcelona said they've yet to receive a serious offer from any club for Ronaldinho. Manchester City manager Mark Hughes believes he's the manager to get the best out of the Brazilian and is willing to be patient to get his man.
I don't think there's a deadline as we speak. I think it's, as I said before, it's a process that's ongoing. Not quite sure when that process will come to a conclusion, but we're certainly not there yet.
City have confirmed they'll play a pre-season game at Celtic on Wednesday, August the 6th. Rochdale have signed Clark Kelty and Scott Wiseman from Darlington, the club they beat in the end-of-season playoffs. Kelty has signed a one-year deal, while Wiseman has a contract until the end of the year, the calendar year. Curtis Davies has completed a permanent move to Aston Villa from West Brom. He'd been on loan at Villa Park last season, while the former Chelsea midfielder Roberto Di Matteo has succeeded Paul Ince as manager of MK Dons. England have named an unchanged 12-man squad for the first test against South Africa, which means no return for Lancashire's Andy Flintoff. Freddie's county teammate Luke Sutton believes he's bowling and batting well enough to have returned.
He just does it with real ease. He bowls with good pace and aggression. He comes on and hits the length almost immediately. So few bad balls, genuine bad balls, you could probably count on one hand, probably on two fingers. It was excellent for Fred to get some time out in the middle, and I think that innings will do him the world of good. You know, he hit some great shots.
The selectors have also named a provisional 30-man squad for the ICC Champions Trophy in Pakistan in September. Included 5 players yet to play for the one-day side, and bowler Simon Jones, who hasn't appeared for England since the 2005 Ashes series. In Speedway, Bellevue's team manager Chris Morton is expecting Peterborough to be a much tougher prospect on their home track this evening. The Aces beat Peterborough at Kirkmanshume Lane on Monday.
They're a strong team at home. They've got some good riders. When we saw Daniel King, I don't know how many points he scored, but I know he dropped a few points that were unfortunate by falling off and making a few mistakes, but I think we can see that he's a strong rider. He won't make any mistakes at home, but we're looking forward to tackling them at their own ground and hopefully beating them.
And David Coulthard is expected to announce shortly that he will retire from racing in Formula One at the end of the season. The 37-year-old Scot has won 13 races in a 14-year career. And at Wimbledon, Venus Williams is already 4 games to 1 up in her first set of her semi-final against Demensheva.
Northwest Tonight with Gordon Burns and Ranveer Singh.
Join us on BBC Northwest Tonight, where you can see what goes on inside one of the NHS's newest clinics. Imagine having your doctors, dentists and nurses all under one roof.
Could that be the future of your NHS? And why is it so controversial?
Northwest Tonight. Tonight at 6:30 on BBC One Northwest.
A very good day. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and you can text on 07786 206 951. Bob from Haywood says, re the trainee doctor. How come no one asked about his past when he began his training? Bob, that's my fault. I've slightly misled you. I didn't realise I had, but clearly I have. He was offered a place, and then the offer was withdrawn. So he didn't actually start training. So I've misled you if that's the impression I left you with. I didn't mean to. So he didn't start there. He was first of all offered a place, and then once they checked into his background, before he started at the college, the place disappeared. He was no longer offered it. So that's the difference. So I'm sorry if that's what I implied to you. I didn't think I had, but if that's what you've taken from it, well, now we're further off. And Lewis in Bolton says, all I want when I die is a second opinion. I know. And then he does that terrible Eamon gag. I don't mean that someone should say you're dead and you're ugly. Exactly. Anyway, we got it out of the way, didn't we? No one else is going to do that gag now for a quarter of an hour. Unless Eamon wanders in, obviously. Allan Beswick on death. I hope it's not in my lifetime, Alan. Imagine Heather and the other afternoon presenter dividing your hours between them. What a depressing prospect, he says. Well, it would be forever, but you're getting a bit of that soon. Yeah. Oh, yes. You'll enjoy that. It'll be belting. They're going to split me down the middle. I'm having my kipper split. It's not good. It's not something I'm looking forward to. Hi, Alan. They're all doing it. Perhaps they're going to knock 7 bells out of the financial speculators. Keith in Allen. No, what he's doing, it's on about the fighting. Spain. The fight back begins. Spain's housing minister has made a bold prediction about the future of the country's housing market. Etc. They're going to fight back. Listen, there are a lot of people living in houses in Spain who'd just be glad if they'd let them carry on living in them, instead of telling them they've got to knock them down, even though when they went up they were perfectly legal. But that's Spain for you. They seem to have a policy of never let the right hand find out what the left hand is doing. Well, that's how it is. It doesn't matter, because we've all been saved. Noel Edmonds has saved us all. Well, he's not yet, but he's going to. Oh, yes. It's in the paper, it must be true. He said Noel Edmonds yesterday called on the public to take matters into their own hands to help fix broken Britain. The TV presenter, who incidentally is only about 5 foot tall. He's tiny. Anyway, no, he's probably more than that. He's probably about 5'4". He's not very tall, anyway. The TV presenter blamed... Well, neither am I. I know I'm not. The TV presenter blamed out-of-touch politicians and joyless health and safety zealots for the country's downward spiral. He says it's falling downward, just like Mike Smith's helicopter did in our garden. Didn't I fall downward? Anyway, speed cameras, gang culture, and London's congestion charge were among the components of what's wrong with this country, he said. Edmonds, 59, said while people were frightened of growing violence on the streets, they're also feared of suffocating influence of the nanny state and unnecessary laws. That's what he's going. Look, I'm reading it out. It's not my view. He painted his grim picture of Britain as he unveiled a new television show in which random acts of kindness will be celebrated and rewarded. Oh, good. How about you just shut the hell up, Edmonds? We'll reward you for that, won't we? We'll stop laughing at you. The show, provisionally named Noel's HQ, will be seen on Sky. Or, as the phrase really should read, will not be seen on Sky by many people. He will also name and shame the greedy and the ungenerous. He's not greedy, is he? No. Got millions in the bank, huge house and all that, but still working. Not greedy at all. Paul says, indeed, I do not know his race. He's talking about the doctor, the would-be doctor. In this day and age discrimination, it may work either way. Imagine the situation where our boy is white, but the least suitable candidate is not, unless there is something they can point to as to why the poor candidate is indeed the poor candidate. They could potentially be accused of selecting the other candidate for rejection because of race. Of course, it could just be that the particular university doesn't want him for a silly childhood mistake. While we may not all have gone committing burglary, I think there are a few of us who can claim not to have made any silly childhood mistakes. I'm going to tell you a little story. I've gone all, yeah, Max Bygraves. Haynes, you need Haynes. Never mind. I learnt this in the past 24 hours in conversation with somebody who is a deputy head teacher. Now, this is interesting. The person was a deputy head teacher at a school, and I was asking them about what it's like being... A pal of mine years ago was a deputy head. He loved teaching. He'd been teaching all his life, all his working life. He'd loved teaching, and then he saw that the school needed it, the school he was teaching in, and he became the deputy head of the school, and he hated it. He absolutely hated it, because instead of teaching, he now turned into an administrator. But he loved teaching, hated the administration. Okay. So I was putting that to this individual, and I said, what's life like for a deputy head? And she began to tell me all the different things that happen when you're deputy head, all the pain and the trouble and all of that. But actually liked teaching and intended to carry on. Well, that's okay. That's okay. But we then got talking about educational standards and all the rest of it, and how they have to meet targets, and they're not really allowed to teach children anymore. They have to drive them through academic qualifications and learning to be a reasonable person in our society, and learning physical skills has nothing in the educational curriculum. We were overstating for effect, but that was it. And then she used a word which you don't hear often, and she said the problem with education today is not comprehensive education, but inclusion. Within comprehensive education, children were streamed, the clever stream, the not-so-clever stream. And you might be in the clever stream in geography and the not-so-clever stream in mathematics, but the clever stream in, I don't know, history. But, you know, exactly. So that was what we were talking about, streaming. And then she said, but now we have inclusion. All the pupils have to be included. And she talked about some individuals in the school that she's the deputy head of. And they have one class, and she said, it does not matter what I do in that class. I will never, ever teach one of the pupils, because that pupil cannot learn in that class. Just cannot. Cannot. He's not misbehaving, he's just doing things that he sees. If somebody swears, then he will incessantly swear. That's his mind. He's educationally challenged, if you like, so he will incessantly swear. If somebody, I don't know, bangs the desk lid, then that is what he will do incessantly for the rest of the lesson. It's just something catches his attention and takes him over. And she said, you know, I can't teach him. Nobody can. And then they started talking, I got onto, because it's a pet subject, as you know, I got onto dyslexia and about all of that. And I told that story I've told before about the dyslexic student who, when sitting his exam, has to have somebody read the exam paper to him, because he can't read, he's dyslexic. And then he has to recite his answers to that paper to somebody else, because he can't write, he's dyslexic. But the person who read him the questions can't take down the answers because it's difficult for them to, and they're not there. The person reading the question reads the question, leaves the room. The bloke that gives the answers, that takes the answers, comes in and takes the answers, not knowing what the question is. So he just takes the answers, so that there's no sort of collusion and assistance. And a third person has to watch the whole proceedings to make sure that nobody's up to no good. Very bizarre. And I explained that to her. And so we had a situation recently where we needed a teacher. And the teacher's application form was full, absolutely full, of spelling mistakes all over the place, words misused and the like. And this was a teacher, or a would-be teacher. And they got the person for interview and they talked to them, and the teacher had dyslexia, quite badly. Because I said in this conversation with this deputy head, I said, look, you know, that person will pass their exam, they'll get a 2-1 or whatever, but they won't get a job because there's nowhere for them to work. And she said, well, that's interesting. And we got onto this dyslexia thing and onto this teacher, or this would-be teacher that applied for the job. And their first thought was, you know, no, you've not got the skills we require. And then they hit upon this thought that, hang on a minute, perhaps you've got exactly the skills that we require, because we have pupils who are dyslexic, and frankly, we have some difficulty in understanding what that means for them. And so somebody who can communicate with that child, somebody who can communicate with them at a level of understanding that you can't achieve if you've not endured the condition, was actually better qualified than anybody else. So that was a very, very interesting take on it. My problem with that is that you may end up then with a self-fulfilling prophecy. You end up with a situation where, okay, we extenuate the problem by accommodating the problem readily, so it ceases to be a problem and becomes the norm, and before you know where you are, 50% of the population have got dyslexia. It's rather like saying the only person who can teach a one-legged man to use a false leg is somebody who's got a false leg. So what are we to do? Say, well, you don't really understand, and if we really want to help this guy, we've got to find someone with one leg, or find someone with two and cut a bit off and let him enjoy it and realise how you improve the life of those with one leg. It's a very strange thought. On the face of it, it looks interesting, but as soon as you scratch the surface, you start to realise that in the world of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Or can he be king of blind people? Is the only person who can be king of blind people for the one-eyed man to have one of his eyes poked out? It's an extraordinary thought, and I've not sorted it out in my head yet, but it was only the past 24 hours. We'll leave you with Kevin from Atherton, who says, I'm somewhat puzzled over this congestion charge nonsense. We've been told that £3 billion is going to be spent on an all-singing and dancing public transport system, £1.5 billion coming from the Transport Innovation Fund, and the remaining £1.5 billion will be borrowed and repaid from the money generated by the congestion charge. If the fantastic new public transport system is going to be so good and everybody leaves their car at home and travels on the new public transport, then no charges are levied or collected. Where's the money going to come from to repay the £1.5 billion debt? Well, it is indeed a very, very good question. And if the public transport does mean that every single person leaves their car at home or travels outside the hours, then clearly it will die on its bum. However, I suspect some, me, will forsake public transport and pay the £5. Ta-da now.
2 weeks